I never believed in true love until I witnessed a heartbreaking reunion after decades apart. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It began on a rainy Tuesday, drops pummeling the roof like frantic heartbeats. I stood outside the old diner, my chest tight with anticipation. Inside, the steamy air vibrated with laughter and clinking glasses, an oasis of warmth in the storm. Then I saw her. Grace. My childhood best friend. Her golden hair, still glowing even in the dim light. I hadn't seen her in years, and that mix of dread and excitement churned in my stomach. Memories flooded my mind, whispers under the stars, the endless summer nights. But something felt off. There was a shadow lurking behind her smile. I could see it in her eyes, a sorrow deep, like the ocean. As I stepped inside, an electric hush fell over the room. People paused, their eyes darting between us. I felt their curiosity like a heat wave, pressing in, suffocating. I didn't want their stares. I wanted to speak to her, to hold her, and tell her how much I missed her. But I hesitated, my trembling hands balled into fists at my sides. I gathered the courage to approach her table, but just as I opened my mouth to call her name, the door swung open. In walked a man shrouded in a heavy coat, his features hidden. He paused, scanning the room. I felt every heartbeat reverberate like thunder. The atmosphere shifted. Was he looking for Grace? Uncertainty gripped me. I took a step back, ensnared in this tense moment. The man moved toward her, and I saw her face pale, lips parting in shock. No. It can't be, she stammered, the color draining from her cheeks. My breath caught in my throat. I was just a spectator, yet my heart felt like it was bleeding for her. What was happening? Why did this stranger provoke such a reaction? I watched, rooted to the spot as time stretched like an elastic band, pulling between what was and what might be. The diner had gone silent. Only the sound of the rain outside broke through the thick tension. My mind raced. Did they know each other? Had he been a ghost of her past? I couldn't take my eyes off them. The fear mixed with some inexplicable hope. What could this mean for her? Then it happened. The man stepped closer, reaching out a hand toward her. Time paused. Then, with trembling hands, she reached out too. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The electric stillness shattered in an instant. Grace's hand met his, and the contact ignited a storm of emotions within me. I felt like a phantom drifting through a gripping drama without a script. The man's face emerged from the shadows, and recognition hit me like a brick. He was Bennett, her first love, the guy who disappeared one summer without a word. The boy whose name echoed during the many sleepless nights Grace spent dreaming of what could have been. Her eyes widened, heavy with disbelief and piercing sorrow. I could almost feel her heart racing from across the room, caught in a nostalgia that pulled her back into memories she had tucked away. Some of the laughter returned to the diner, but it felt hollow, twisted, like an ugly parody of joy. "Bennett?" she whispered, her voice quaking as if she gripped the fragile threads of a dream. I felt as if I were intruding in a sacred place. Torn between the need to flee and the need to stay as a witness to the unfolding moment, I decided to take a breath and find a seat at the far end of the diner, hoping to blend into the vibrant wallpaper. Their conversation began as a mere murmur, but I could see the paintbrush strokes of panic and pain etching their faces. I strained to catch snippets of dialogue, words laced with hesitation, fluctuations between warmth and fracture. Life threads had been missed, and I knew there was so much left unsaid. Bennett's hand shook slightly as he spoke, even as he attempted to remain collect. I caught the word sorry slip through the air, an apology that tasted bitter and heavy. Grace looked away, her breaths hitching as if the weight of memories crashed upon her like waves eroding a fragile shore. And then, I realized was here for more than just an apology. He had returned to reopen wounds long buried, while he carried anxieties of his OWN.as the minutes stretched. I couldn't shake the emotion coursing through me, nagging and stinging. I'd stood by as her friend, year after year, witnessing her longing for closure, yet now, it felt as though I was losing her to the shadows of their past. Anger twisted in my gut, not toward her, but toward the fate that had twisted their lives. Suddenly, the warmth of the diner felt stifling, too intimate for my longing spirit. I grabbed my coat, deciding I couldn't bear to watch another moment. Just as I turned to leave, a figure bumped into me, an elderly man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He looked me dead in the eye, pausing for a second. "Sometimes, love has a way of finding its way back," he said, his voice tender yet laden with understanding. I blinked, taken aback by the sincerity flickering in his gaze. "You think so? Have faith, child. Heartbreak often opens doors for new beginnings, if only we let it." His words settled like a balm on my restless heart. As I turned back toward Grace and Bennett, I caught a glimpse of Grace's face, flickering between heartache and tentative hope. She looked as if she'd been torn in half, one part aching for the past yet yearning for a semblance of love renewed. I took a step back, deciding to stay, to give her that. But then, just as Grace was about to speak again, her expression shifted, faced with some unseen horror. I followed her gaze, and my heart dropped. A woman had entered the diner, her face as stormy as the outside. She wore a long coat, wet from the rain, her eyes blazing with fury and betrayal. She made a beeline for Bennett, and I could feel the tension crackle in the air like static, each breath holding the weight of impending disaster. "Bennett, how could you? After everything, you think you could just waltz back into her life?" The woman's voice sliced through the air, a knife unearthing old wounds with every syllable. In that instant, I witnessed heartbreak morph into chaos, all around us. The intertwining of past and present threatened to pull us all under. My heart raced with panic, and I knew that nothing in this reunion would ever be simple or easy. Grace's eyes met mine, a storm of emotions swirling within the fear, confusion, and an unspoken plea for understanding. What would happen now? Would this confrontation devastate everything she hoped to rebuild? My mind raced, as did my heart, knowing I had to brace myself for the shockwaves of revelations that were about to unravel in the most unexpected way. In the ensuing chaos, an eerie silence enveloped the diner like a thick fog. Grace's breath hitched audibly, tears welling in her eyes, as she stared at Bennett, who seemed paralyzed, unable to respond to the fury storming toward him. The woman's voice, laced with raw hurt, echoed within the confines of the small space, reverberating through every heart present in that moment. The rain drummed relentlessly against the diner windows, contrasting the illumination within with its dark, chaotic cadence. My breathing quickened, and for a moment, I felt as if I were in a dream, a nightmare caught between shaky breaths and trembling hearts. Each passing second seemed to stretch, the air heavy with unsaid words and palpable tension. "Who is this?" The woman thrust her finger toward Grace, contempt dripping from her tone. "Is this the life you built while leaving me in the dark, Bennett?" My heart ached for Grace as I watched her reality bloom into an unspeakable emotion, the kind that grips the soul with icy fingers. Her once vibrant spirit dimmed, signaling the resurgence of ghosts best left undisturbed. Lily Bennett finally spoke, his voice hoarse and fragmented. "It's not what you think. I never intended for any of this," but his words did little to soothe the tempest. Lily advanced, her eyes fierce, a burning wildfire, teetering on the brink of explosive despair. And yet here you are. After years of silence, you waltz back to her? To relive the past? You don't get to choose when and how to come back into my life, Bennett. I could feel the heat of her anger and the chill of Grace's heartbreak, an emotional tug-of-war that turned my stomach. It was evident to everyone in the diner that this confrontation was unraveling threads far beyond the scope of any single reunion. I shared a glance with Grace and saw her resolve shatter like glass, a mirror reflecting pieces of a life she thought she had put together, now threatening to crumble. "Please, stop." Grace's whisper was drowned out under the cacophony of unresolved emotions. I wanted to stand up, to shield her from this pain, but I was trapped within my own turmoil, a spectator to the agony of a past refusing to remain buried. Their unresolved love painted a torment that reached far beyond the boundaries of their shared histories. Bennett's arm flexed in an approximation of defense, fumbling for words that still lay heavy on his tongue. But there was no sanctuary left for any of us.do. You really care about her? Lily seethed, her gaze penetrating. Or are you just trying to shield your own guilt after abandoning me? Those words cut through me, and I realized the truth wasn't merely a mystery of love. It was an unrelenting ache. Grace didn't deserve this torment. Just as I contemplated my next move, a small flicker of kindness sparked in the chaos. An elderly waitress, who had previously been a mere observer, approached the scene, her face lined with compassion and understanding. "Can I get you all something? A moment of calm?" she offered gently, a glimmer of warmth amidst the storm. Grace's tear-streaked face turned toward her, the vulnerability evident. Lily's anger faltered, if only momentarily, as she processed this unexpected kindness. "Don't you see," the waitress continued softly, her eyes dancing with an ethereal grace, "that we all deserve a second chance? A moment to breathe amidst the destruction?" But before the broken people in our midst could further peel back their layers, my phone buzzed violently in my coat pocket, pulling me away from the moment. I fished it out with trembling hands, my heart racing. The name flashing on the screen sent a jolt of confusion through me. Maya. We hadn't spoken in months. Throwing caution to the wind, I answered, my voice shaking. "Hello, Eli." Maya's tone was urgent. "You have to come now. It's about Grace. Something happened, something you need to know. It's important." The breath escaped my lungs as the gravity of her words hit me. A sudden possibility shifted within Newhat. If this news might change everything, shattering the ongoing confrontation, I rushed back toward Grace and Bennett, my heart racing along the way. The frenetic energy of the diner felt palpable, as if time hadn't yet caught up with the storm brewing at our table. But before I could utter even a single word of warning or support, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. Bennett's eyes met mine, yet beyond the familiar pain, I saw realization dawning, and understanding that there would be no escaping the consequences of the past, no matter how many seconds had been lost. Grace's gaze remained locked on the confrontation, bringing clarity to the storm brewing around her while drawing in fresh winds of fear and hope. "Eli, what's going on?" Grace's voice trembled, a longing question that hung dangerously in the air, as I stood between her and a collision of life-altering revelations. I faced the tempest surrounding us, knowing the chaos had just begun, and that the next moment might reveal everything we had so desperately hidden or hoped to forget. The diner buzzed with a chaotic energy, poured into every corner, from the clinks of cutlery to the low hum of hushed conversations. I felt the weight of the room pressing down on me, a collective breath waiting to be released. I could hardly process Maya's words, the urgency ringing in my ears like the distant thunder outside, amplifying the tension that had gripped my heart. "Eli, you need to come now." Maya's insistence rattled me, amplifying my anxiety. "It's serious." I could hear her anxious breaths crackling through the line, each wheeze echoing the worry that clawed at me. But I was afraid to leave Grace, to walk away from the fracture unfolding before me. Before I could grapple with my next move, Lily's piercing voice broke through like shards of glass. What do you have to say for yourself, Bennett? Did you come back to apologize? Or are you simply seeking a way to quiet your damn conscience? Lily, please. Bennett's voice trembled, emotions battling behind his steely facade. For all his guilt, he seemed desperate, yet that desperation only fueled the fire. You don't have to do this here. Do you think I care where it happens? She shot back, her fury palpable. It felt personal, like the words were stealing warmth from the air, whipping around us like a fierce wind. You don't get to dictate that after you abandoned me. Grace stood frozen at the edge of this emotional battlefield. I wanted to reach out, to hold her close and shield her from the fury, yet I felt tethered by invisible threads, the invisible weight of unspoken words that hung between us. Each passing second became more agonizing, a reminder of her vulnerability. Come on, Grace, I finally said, my voice trembling as I turned to her. Maybe we should step outside for a moment. Just breathe. The hope in my heart intertwined with the fear in my gut, hoping against hope that giving her room to breathe would bring clarity. But before she could respond, an unexpected kindness swept through her eyes as she caught the waitress' gaze once more. The older woman nodded subtly, a gesture of recognition, urging Grace to see the humanity in her own tempest. Maybe we do deserve a second chance, Grace whispered, her voice fragile yet imbued with a newfound strength as those words escaped her lips. A moment of clarity illuminated her sorrow, but it was fleeting, flickering as the confrontation erupted anew. Second chance? Lily hissed, her biting sarcasm driving into the atmosphere, casting shadows over the tiny glimmer of hope that had dared to blossom. You think he deserves that? You think he can just come back and fix everything? It doesn't work that way, Grace. Yet in that moment, Bennett's gaze shifted. He had been enduring now, he was observing, processing not just Lily's accosting words, but the unease emanating from Grace. I could sense his conflict growing, an implosion of guilt and yearning mingling within him, urging him to fight back. Lily, I'm sorry, he managed, his words weighted with the burden of guilt. I didn't come back to hurt you. I thought I could be different, to fix what happened, but his voice trailed off, an unspoken truth hanging in the air, begging for resolution. Stop, Grace's voice surged with unexpected fierceness. Stop pretending like you have the power to fix any of this. The fierce tremor in her tone cut through to the core, powerful and raw, yet it was laced with what felt like despair. You don't even know what you're asking for. Just then, the distant ring of the diner phone echoed, sharper than before, jolting everyone from the confrontation. The waitress darted toward the phone, her silhouette cutting through the dim light. As she answered, her face contorted with an emotion I couldn't place, glistening eyes reflecting a struggle of their own. Grace's brow knitted, her worry crescendoing as the waitress spoke in muffled tones, glancing nervously at our table. What followed was a rapturous silence, each heartbeat seeming to stretch the moment. I could see Grace's hand tremble, and in that instant, a deeper worry lodged itself in my throat. What if this was connected to Maya's frantic call? What if everything intertwined into a single, insurmountable truth? Grace, I urged, eyes locked. What if we need to go now? I need to know what happened. But just then, a sudden commotion erupted. Bennett lunged forward, panic igniting his expression. No! Wait! We can't go yet. I have to explain. His voice was frantic, desperate enough that it sent a wave of alarm rushing through me. With the room erupting around us, the waitress hung up the phone, her lips moving in careful consideration. But then, I registered a flicker of dread in her eyes, and my heart fell as clarity descended like a heavy curtain, leaving me ice cold. There's been an accident, she declared, her voice wavering with conviction. It's about Maya. A sudden hush held us captive as my heart raced. I felt the ground beneath me shift, a sense of impending dread cascading through the diner's air. Hope turning relentlessly into despair. leaving us to face whatever ruminated ahead caught in the eye of our storm. The world dimmed, muffled, and distorted, as the waitress' words ricocheted in my ears. "It's about Maya." For a moment, time stretched infinitely as my heart dropped, the weight of fear heavy in my chest. I barely registered the rest of the diner, the clamor of dishes, or the persistent buzz of conversation now merely a distant echo. "An accident?" Grace whispered, her eyes wide, brimming with an unyielding mix of sadness and apprehension. I could see my own fear mirrored in her gaze, but somewhere beneath it lay a resolute determination. As silence enveloped our table, Lily's defiance seemed to wither, replaced with a pale resignation that I had never seen from her before. She looked toward Bennett, her expression softening slightly. Was it pity or something deeper? I couldn't quite decipher it. "Eli," Bennett's voice cracked, breaking through the thick air separating us. "I need to please, just stop." I cut him off, wrestling with the turmoil brewing within me. "Right now, we need to focus on Maya." Each word of his I had wished for turned into a fog displaced by an urgent desire for clarity regarding Maya's fate. I felt a desperate pull to be there for her, though the thought of facing the possibility of loss felt like a chain binding me, where every link weighed heavier than the last. Without another word, I bolted toward the diner's entrance, with Grace and Lily trailing behind. That gentle urgency coursed through me. Same rhythm echoed in my heart and fueled my instincts. I pushed through the heavy glass door, a rush of cold air greeting us, cutting into the tangled web of emotions that had gripped my inner turmoil. Once outside, my lungs released the breath I didn't know I had been holding. The sky was heavy with dark clouds, shadows threatening to swallow the fading light. And in that gloom, I could already sense the gravity of what awaited us. "Where do we go?" Grace asked, her voice quaking. I turned to Bennett, desperate for direction. "You know where she might be, don't you? You have to tell us." He hesitated, the haunted look in his eyes a reminder of the pain he buried deep within him. "I think she's at the hospital on Ridgeway. I dropped her off 30 minutes ago." "It wasn't supposed to happen, Eli." "Then let's go," I urged. A quick nod from each of them, and we all squeezed into my car, our fear palpable in the confined space. As I drove, my mind raced with memories of the way her laughter used to light up the room, the sweetness of her kindness, always reaching out to everyone who needed a reminder of light in their darkness. How could something so dangerous happen to someone so beautifully fragile? "Eli," Grace said softly, her hand trembling beside me. "What if she stopped?" I interjected, unable to address the thought outright. Grief settled over us like a shroud, a dark cloud pulsing with the possibility of impending sorrow. But she pressed on, eyes fixed on me. "What if we lose her?" "I don't think I can handle that." Those words struck me deep. Just yesterday, those same thoughts had flourished within me as I contemplated losing her. Now, the tables were turned, the stakes infinitely higher. "We won't lose her," I proclaimed, though the conviction in my voice faltered. Wrestling with doubt. In that electric silence, Lily reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone, her fingers dancing over the screen. "In trying to find news about the accident," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper over the hum of the car engine. Minutes later, as the hospital loomed through the rain-streaked windshield, a heaviness wrapped around my heart. Each beat seemed to echo with the unvocalized fears and shattered hopes nestled so carefully beneath the surface. We stepped out under the dim glow of the hospital lights, the drizzle now a warm drizzle sifting through the air. Inside, the sterile scent of antiseptic filled our lungs, rapidly dousing the flickers of hope we gathered. We hastened toward the reception desk, but before we could speak, a wave of urgency gripped me, a gnawing sense of dread fueling my every step. "Excuse me," Bennett interjected, desperation sharp in his voice. "We're looking for Maya." The receptionist's eyes darted from Bennett to the other standing by, her gaze searching, flicking to the paper in front of her. "Are you family?" she inquired with a practiced tone. The word hung in the air, each syllable pinching painfully. Neither of us had the right to claim that title now. "No, but there's a waiting room down the hall," she continued, the calm demeanor belying the turbulence thrumming beneath her straightforward words. "You can wait there." As we shuffled toward the waiting area, I could sense each person's worry intertwining in a chorus of trapped breaths. Grace sat heavily in a plastic chair, her knuckles turning white as they gripped the armrest. Bennett paced behind her, lost in his thoughts. Lily remained close yet aloof, clearly struggling to remain steady. A sudden ringing phone shattered the silence, setting my heart racing once again. I was about to turn toward it when my name floated through the air, an unexpected voice slicing through like a beacon of truth. "Eli." I spun around, heart jumping, as I saw Maya's sister rush toward us, her face streaked with concern, eyes red-rimmed from crying, panic etched into every line. "You have to come. They need you now." Instinct surged within me, igniting a frozen determination deep within my chest as I made to follow her. Who needed me? What did she mean? But just before I could move, Lily's voice broke through again, her tone sharp and bitter. "This is your fault, Bennett." As I took my next step, I glanced back, my heart swelling with conflict and confusion, realizing I had stepped into a tempest of broken hearts that demanded reckoning. And in the center of that storm, I feared the ties binding us all would fray, unraveling everything into chaos as I confronted whatever awaited us in that room, believing it could shift the currents of our lives forever. As we followed Maya's sister through the sterile corridors of the hospital, a deep sense of urgency washed over us, mixed with a deepening dread. Each step felt like wading through thick fog, clouding my thoughts while drawing out the vulnerability I had tried desperately to suppress. Maya's sister led us to a small room at the end of the hall, the door slightly ajar, a sliver of muffled voices spilling out, almost as if they were whispering secrets about the world beyond these walls. My heart hammered in my chest as I gripped the door handle, bracing myself for whatever lay on the other side. I wasn't prepared for what awaited us. I pushed the door open and hesitated, struck by the sight that greeted me. Maya lay motionless on a hospital bed, her face pale against the stark white sheets, tubes snaking into her arms like a morbid vine. I felt dread weigh me down like iron shackles, my breath catching in my throat. But it wasn't just the sight of her that stole the air from my lungs, it was the energy in the room, saturated with unshed tears and blood-stained memories. 2 nurses were beside her, their voices hushed yet urgent. I could barely focus on their words, drowning in the silence that separated me from the girl I loved, the girl who had always been the bright spark in the dimmest corners of my life. "Eli," Maya's sister said, her voice trembling as she reached for my arm, pulling me gently closer. "They say she's stable, but she's stable," I echoed, the word tasting bitter and foreign on my tongue. I longed to touch her, to reassure myself that she was truly alive and fighting. But the gravity of the moment held me in place, encased in an icy grip of fear. "Can we see her?" Bennett's voice cut through the suffocating silence. The hesitation in his tone couldn't mask the guilt that dripped from his every word. The nurses exchanged a glance, a flash of understanding passing between them, before one stepped forward. "You can visit, but keep it brief, please. She needs rest." I stepped closer to the bed, my heart pounding in rhythm with each shallow breath she took. A flicker of hope ignited within me despite the circumstances, fueled by the possibility that she could hear us. Our voices threaded together, wrapping around her as if creating an invisible lifeline. "Maya, it's me," I breathed, my voice breaking. I reached out, brushing my fingertips against her cool knuckles. A shiver ran down my spine, the warmth of her skin left a trace of comfort I desperately needed. Bennett stood at my shoulder, guilt crystallizing in the air as he whispered her name, a plea to be forgiven. In that moment, I knew that the weight of anxiety didn't belong solely to me. It anchored all of us, 5 souls caught in an unbreakable web of unresolved emotions and unspoken truths. I can't believe this is happening, Grace whispered, a tear slipping down her cheek. She stepped closer, hesitating only for a moment before reaching out to touch Maya's arm. Please, be okay. But with every passing moment, the air grew heavier with unaddressed conflict. I couldn't shake the growing despair that seeped in while I remained uncertain about our futures after this moment. Who would we be? The tension simmered, even as the flicker of hope shimmered like a distant star. Suddenly, Lily began to back away, her face twisted with confusion and turmoil. "You can't do this," she explained, her voice shaking with barely concealed anger and pain. "It's not fair." "We should have what?" Bennett replied, his voice rising in pitch, desperation breaking through. "You think what happened is my fault? If only I had known. I wouldn't have." I turned from Maya, feeling the pull of tension between them suffocate me. Their voices filled the room, an anxious charge crackling through the air, threatening to consume the fragile hope we had created. "Both of you. Please," Maya's sister pleaded, her voice breaking just like the shreds of our unity. "This isn't the time for blame. We need to focus on her. We need to be here for her." And though I wanted to follow that plea, to unite us in our shared love for Maya, anger swelled within me. Each accusation pulled my heart apart further, but before I could retort, a wild commotion from the hallway snapped our attention away. A loud crash echoed, followed by urgent voices shouting and footsteps pounding away. My heart dropped. Something was wrong. Just then, a figure darted past the open doorway. I squinted, trying to comprehend the chaos, when I recognized the wild hair and frantic eyes of someone I hadn't seen in years. A knot twisted in my gut, pulling tighter as the realization gripped. Methy had returned for a reason I could never have seen coming. As the person paused, glancing into the room, the air thickened, and for a moment, everything blurred between disbelief and dread. The answer I sought lay in their eyes, an unwanted truth that could shatter the fragile remnants of everything I believed was safe. The moment hung in the air, heavy and electric, each of us frozen in place as the past collided with our present. My thoughts raced, panic curling like smoke around my heart, constricting my breath. It was Ethan, Maya's childhood friend, his eyes wide with fear and recognition, mirroring my own turmoil. "Maya!" he exclaimed, stepping into the room, his voice ringing with urgency, and a hint of something else simmering beneath the surface. What happened? The world outside the hospital faded as we grappled with the weight of his presence. It felt like a dark cloud rolling in, casting a shadow over what little hope we had gathered around Maya's bed. I felt Bennett's body tense beside me, a low growl lurking in his throat, and Lily's jaw clenched, her shoulders drawn tight as if preparing for an invisible battle. "You shouldn't be here," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, yet packed with venom. I felt a flash of resentment heighten my pulse. How could he just show up now, when everything had come crashing down? Maya is my best friend. I've been looking for her. When I found out she was here. Ethan's voice trailed off, trembling with both urgency and emotion. "Your best friend?" I shot back, incredulous. "You just left. You didn't carry lie." Lily interjected, placing a hand on my arm, pleading for calm. "This isn't the time." But I couldn't contain the tempest rumbling within me. "It feels exactly like the time, Lily," I snapped, shaking off her touch as irritation flooded my veins. "It's a little too late for him to play the concerned friend." "Please," Ethan murmured, his gaze darting between us, pleading, hurt blooming in his expression. "I didn't come here to stir things up. I came to support her." "Support her? Where were you when she needed you?" Each word dripped with accusation, fueled by dormant resentment. Memories of late-night conversations with Maya, of her cries about lost friendships, rose like phantoms. Darkening my heart, they drowned out the flicker of hope we had found just moments earlier. "I had my reasons," Ethan whispered, tone softer now. a mixture of shame and defiance. I thought I was protecting her. By running away, I scoffed. You call that protection? Across the room, Maya's sister bit her lip, wrestling to keep her composure as her eyes darted between us. Enough. This is not about you two, she finally shouted, her voice cutting through the charged atmosphere. Maya is the only thing that matters right now. We all fell silent, the truth of her words hanging over us like a heavy blanket, choking out the anger as it wrapped around our grief. We turned back to Maya, seeing her small form lying helpless, a life so vibrant now muted to this frail existence tethered to machines that beeped softly, keeping her alive. An unexpected wave of guilt washed over me, making my anger seem trivial. I'm sorry, I whispered, not sure who I was apologizing to anymore, the past, to Ethan, or to the girl lying in front of us, who deserved none of this chaos. As if she sensed my turmoil, Maya took a shaky breath. The room inhaled with her, an electrifying jolt of hope slicing through the despair flicker of life beneath the cruel mask of illness. Eli? Her voice was barely a whisper, tremulous but laced with an undeniable urgency. Maya, I said, rushing to her side, my earlier anger melting away. It's me, Eli. We're all here. Her eyelids fluttered, struggling to open, as if she were clawing her way back to consciousness. I grasped her hand tighter, the warmth and pulse reassuring me that she was still fighting, still here. I need you all. Need to tell you. Her words drifted away, but the intensity in her gaze held the weight of 1,000 unspoken truths. Bennett stepped closer, casting a nervous look at Ethan, who stood still like a statue, rooted by the gravity of the moment. Maya, whatever you need to say, we're listening, Bennett urged, his voice low, strained with emotion. Seemingly summoning every ounce of strength she had left, Maya turned her head, meeting Ethan's gaze. Her expression softened for a fleeting moment before her eyes widened with fear. There's something I didn't, something you need to know, about us. Everything around us coalesced into a suspended moment, the air thick with unspoken words that could reshape our lives forever. My heart raced in anticipation, uncertainty crashing over me like a wave, drowning out reason. Just hold on, I urged gently, almost desperately, as the confusing mess of fractured relationships and unresolved tension pulsed in the silence. As she opened her mouth to speak, a hushed urgency fell upon us. This was the revelation that might redefine our fate. But before she could form the words, the beeping machine surrounding her suddenly turned erratic, alarms blaring through the tranquilizing quiet, ripping apart the delicate air of hope. Her eyes fluttered with panic, a mirror of our collective fear. My breath caught in my throat as reality spiraled outside of our control. In the dim glow of the hospital room, every heartbeat echoed with a dreadful promise. And as we waited for clarity to emerge from the chaos, one thought filled my mind. Nothing would ever be the same again. The chaos erupted into a discordant symphony as nurses flooded into the room, their expressions a mixture of urgency and practiced calm. Bennett and Lily stepped back, instinctively creating space for the professionals, their presence momentarily eclipsed by the rush of activity. I was frozen, fear etching lines across my face, the world around me fading to an echoing hum as the alarms blared defiantly. Maya! I shouted, my voice breaking as panic wormed its way into my chest. I wanted to reach for her, to comfort her, to shield her from the chaos that was consuming her, but the nurses were already positioning themselves to examine her. It's okay, we've got you, one of them reassured, her hands working deftly as she attempted to stabilize Maya's vitals, but the words struck me as pathetically inadequate in the face of an impending disaster. Underneath my skin, the tension coiled tighter, spooling outwards like a furious storm. Please, Ethan murmured, stepping closer, and for a moment, I saw that he understood the horror enveloping us. Perhaps he had always understood Maya. Perhaps he had sensed the fragility that hovered like a specter around her. Just let her hear my voice, he pleaded softly, his own vulnerability surfacing through the tears pooling in his eyes. I clenched my fists, torn between the instinct to keep him away and the deep-seated yearning to have Maya grasp something familiar during this tempest. In that fragile moment, however, the tides of my anger began to ebb, revealing an undercurrent of desperation. Maya needs to know we're here, I breathed out, even as the words weighed heavily, tainted by years of unanswered questions and unresolved tensions. The nurse nodded, glancing pointedly at Ethan. You can talk to her, but keep it calm. We need to stabilize her first. As I stepped aside and allowed Ethan closer, I felt an unwelcome pang of betrayal. What did he know about Hope? He had fled when Maya needed him most. I resisted the urge to voice my frustration, instead watching as he leaned forward, his voice a nearly inaudible whisper amidst the chaos. Maya, it's me, Ethan. I'm right here. His tone carried a gravity I could barely fathom, layered with unacknowledged regret. As he spoke, a flicker of recognition ignited in Maya's gaze. A tremor ran through her, and for a moment, it felt as if the alarms had muted in the face of their connection. Maya, hold on, he urged, a desperation weaving through his words. You have to fight. You're so strong, I know it. Remember all those summers we spent together? We can have that again. Ethan, stop, I interrupted, my voice strained, shattering the moment. This isn't the time. But somewhere in my heart, I felt a seed of hope blooming in contradiction to my anger. Could he truly provide her with something I couldn't? The nurses continued their work, some gently coaxing Maya to breathe deeper, their voices ebbing and flowing in a haze of minor distractions. Suddenly, as her eyes began to flutter beneath the weight of the moment, I was shaken by a revelation coursing through the charged atmosphere. Maya had unfinished business with all of us, and perhaps some part of her was reaching for the threads that still connected her to her past, whether it was finding solace in Ethan, in me, or in the space we once occupied as friends. Maya, I said softly, inching closer, longing to reestablish that connection even as regret clawed at my throat. We're all here for you. Just keep fighting. At the sound of my voice, her eyes focused on me, wide with a mix of fear and love. Eli, she murmured, confusion mingling with her exhaustion, and in that single utterance, every moment shared flooded my mind. Sunny Cove days, late-night laughter, our dreams unspooled in front of us. But the monitors surged again, relentless in their rhythm. The nurses intensified their efforts, their urgent commands filling the air, pushing, stabilizing, measuring. I could see that our small handhold on Hope was slipping, and with every moment that passed, my heart twisted tighter like a vice. Stay with us, Maya. Breathe, a nurse called out. And as if possessed by a purpose, I reached for her hand, intertwining my fingers with hers, trying to anchor her in this chaos. But in my periphery, I caught Ethan's eye, and a silent acknowledgement passed between us. There was history there, woven with regret and potential for healing, and I realized it was not only about Maya anymore. It was about what we could become in the aftermath of all this pain. The past couldn't remain in the shadows, it clamored for acknowledgement. Suddenly, the lights above flickered, the harsh fluorescent beams casting erratic shadows on the walls. A deafening sound crescendoed, drowning out the frantic murmurs of the nurses. I felt a tremor in the air like a prelude to an incoming storm. Her heart rate is dropping, shouted the lead nurse across the bed, her voice ripping through the frantic silence. Maya, I cried out, choking on the terror bundled within me. World and time collapsed in on themselves, the very essence of our existence suspended in the fragile breath between life and death. Just when I thought this night couldn't fracture any further, a chilling revelation swept across my mind. A whispered danger lurking beneath the chaos. I remembered a vague conversation overheard at the café. A chance mentioned something about a secret kept, fingers tapping tables and anxiety, hushed voices cloaking truth. Suddenly, it struck me. I turned towards Ethan, urgency in my eyes. You have to tell us the truth. Now. Maya's life might depend on it. His eyes widened, a mix of fear and indecision crossing his face, and in that moment suspended in chaos, we stood precariously on the brink of unveiling something that could shatter what was left of our fragile bonds. But could it be a light illuminating the path ahead, or merely darkness swallowing us whole? As a new wave of uncertainty crashed over me, I knew one thing for certain. I never believed in true love until this moment, where every heartbeat twisted into the fabric of our shared chaos, where hope and despair danced a cruel waltz. The relentless beeping of the monitors kept time with my thundering heart, each pulse signaling a desperate fight against fate. As I stood there, clutching Maya's hand, I could feel the warmth of her skin slipping away, a fragile tether unraveling before my eyes. I looked to Ethan, silent questions echoing in the space between us, his face a portrait of anguish that mirrored my own. "Maya needs you," I pressed, my voice barely a whisper amidst the chaos. The alarm sounded like an impending reckoning, reminding us that time was a luxury we could no longer afford. "If you know anything that can help her, now is the time." Ethan hesitated, his gaze seizing on the floor, as if looking for answers among the sterile tiles. The weight of his secret loomed between us, a phantom carrying the collective disappointment of our fractured past. She wrote me letters," he finally uttered, the confession hitching in his throat. "When things got bad, she was scared. She reached out and He faltered, the words dissolving into remorse. "I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know what to say." With every admission, he seemed to shrink under the burden, each piece of his guilt carving a deeper line of despair on his brow. "What did she say?" I demanded, urgency curling around my words like a noose. "Those letters, what did she want?" Maya's eyes fluttered again, like wings struggling against a cruel wind. Although she lay in that stark, white bed, a fight raged within her, a desperate plea to find a way back to us. Ethan clenched his fists, forcing himself to remember, bring the words back from a time long buried. She talked about how she felt alone, like nobody was there to help her when everything got too much. But she also spoke of Yusuf, the things we used to do together. She used those memories as comfort. I felt the walls close in, anger and pain rising like venom beneath my skin. "And you just stood by?" I hissed, my anger simmering dangerously close to the surface. "You left her to face those dark times alone." But even as I spoke, a part of me empathized. We were all tethered by fear of grief and loss, of admitting our own weaknesses. The weight of regret pressed hard against my chest as I recalled the moments I had turned my back on Maya's struggles as well, choosing to bury my own pain instead of reaching out. "I shouldn't have left her," Ethan choked out, his voice frantic as the energy in the room shifted, the crisis mounting around us. "Maya deserved better than that. Too always thought she was so strong, but I realize now I didn't give her the chance to be vulnerable. I let her down, Eli. I let you both down." Just then, the lead nurse's voice cut through our turmoil like a siren, sharp and commanding. "We need to intubate. Prep for sedation." Panic surged through my veins. "No!" I rushed forward, clutching Maya's hand tighter, desperate. "Don't take her from us. Don't you dare." But as I struggled against that unseen tide, the technicians moved with precision, and the nurses, though a blur, maintained their unwavering focus. "Eli, you need to step back." An urgent voice called out, but I didn't want to let go. I couldn't. The thought only heightened my sense of dread. Ethan reached out, his hand shaking as he offered a silent plea. "She needs us to be here," he whispered, and for the first time, I detected a heartbeat of understanding. "We both failed her, Eli, but maybe we can fight for her now together." In that moment, something shifted, an echo of our fractured bond began to mend under the weight of our shared guilt and desperate hope. Perhaps, in this midst of turmoil, we could find a collective strength that might just be enough. I nodded hesitantly, acutely aware of how far we had fallen, yet strangely buoyed in the knowledge that we still might rise together. The nurses worked around us, and for a fleeting moment, the chaotic symphony of alarms dulled to a low thrum, interchangeable with my quickening pulse. Maya's face transformed as the sedative coursed through her, her features softening, every worry she had ever shouldered easing, revealing the girl I remembered filled with light and laughter. But the alarm surged erratically once again, the flat line of her heartbeat desolating the fragile ground below us. My stomach dropped, a tortured scream lodged in my throat. I turned to Ethan, my own panic manifested in my wide eyes, reflecting a fear that we hadn't just failed her, but that we were losing her entirely. "Maya!" I yelled, the word torn from my soul. But he grabbed my arm, forcing me to look at him instead. "We still have a chance, Eli. Focus on her. Remember the love all those summers can't give up now." And perhaps it was in that moment of desperation, the recalling of blissful memories, that I grasped onto the notion of true love, how it could weave through pain, urging us to confront our shadows rather than hide from them. Yet as Maya drifted further away, resentment turned towards Ethan, who had led me to this place of reckoning, where the heartache lingered not just for Maya, but also for us. Because the deeper we unveiled, the more I realized our hidden truths ran darker, and the revelation of what had transpired between him and Maya lingered like a storm cloud above us. Just then, a voice echoed from outside, piercing the tension. "Dr. Simmons." Someone called, urgency threading through the air. The nurse raced away, her face suddenly illuminated with realization. "We need to review the news scan results." What were those results? I wondered aloud, fear curling around my chest again. Could she have hidden more than we knew? Ethan glanced sharply in the same direction, his brow furrowing deeply. And in that fleeting moment of uncertainty, something within him seemed to fracture, perhaps realizing that her secret was not just a burden, but a motive for everything that led to this moment of pain. "Maya!" I screamed again as her heart rate dipped, and holding on to hope felt almost unbearable, threatening to tear apart the fragile resilience we had just begun to build. The echo of those letters echoed in my ears. Maybe they contained more secrets, shrouded truths that could shift everything we knew about our lives, our hearts, and what we would willingly do for the love of a friend. And from the haze shadowing my memory, a chilling realization washed over me. This wasn't just about Maya and Marie, it was about the lies we had all told ourselves, the love we had buried under layers of guilt, each secret spiraling toward a monumental revelation that time itself would not forgive. As the whispers of truth began to surface, would we still be standing when the time came to face them? I watched helplessly as the chaos unfurled around Maya, desperation gripping me, entwined with guilt and anger. The nurses moved with blinding speed, but my heart moved even faster, caught in the crushing weight of regret. It felt suffocating, not just because of the frightening alarms or the sterile, cold hospital room, but because I understood, in that moment, this wasn't merely a fight for her life. It was a reckoning for all of us entwined in this web of pain and longing. "Maya!" I screamed once more as if sheer will could slice through the silence, tear down the obstacles that had rushed each of us apart. Looking up into her pale face, I was struck by a thought both terrifying and liberating. She was slipping away, and I couldn't allow the shadow of our past to extinguish the light she had once been for all of us. In the cacophony around me, I felt grasped by a singular truth that shone through the storm. If we were to help Maya, we had to face our own truths too. We couldn't let her suffer the consequences of our cowardice anymore. Suddenly, I turned to the other figures crowded into the room. "Ethan," I began, voice hoarse from terror, "you have to tell me what's in those letters. You have to unburden yourself, and Maya needs to know her truth." There it was, a catalyst, the essence of our existence condensed into that one desperate plea. He hesitated, pained eyes darting between Maya's prone form and mine. A thread fluttered in the air, an acknowledgement of all we had been too afraid to face. "Eli, too never wanted to hurt her. I thought it was best to stay away." I was scared, but she wrote to me about how betrayed she felt when I left. She thought I didn't care. His admission hung between us like ash, swirling remnants of heartbreak dancing in the air. But that day when her letter stopped it crushed me. I thought maybe she no longer wanted me in her life. Every time I decided to reach out, something held me back. I didn't want to be another disappointment. Every word layered with regret clanged against my heart, a painful rhythm punctuated by Maya's labored breaths. "You need to understand," I urged, my voice wavering under the weight of fear. "This isn't just about you or her past. It's about saving her. You have to confront it all, the fear, the love, the darkness." Maya's eyes flickered again, shadows dancing across her features, the faint spark of her spirit yearning to rise above the turmoil that surrounded her. But the weight of silence pressed heavily on Ethan, who felt cornered under the burden of truth, still reluctant to remove the mask he had worn for so long. "Ethan," I pressed, my own voice thickening, "it's time. We were all afraid. What matters now is showing Maya she's worth fighting for. The pain is there, yes, but perhaps those letters contain the very essence of her fight to survive. You need to give her the strength she once gave you." At the edge of my plea, I could see realization dawn in his eyes, a flicker of hope igniting an ember within him. She loved life, Eli, she loved us, but she felt so alone. Those words pierced through the tumult within me, crashing against the walls I built to protect myself from the truth. "She was strong because she thought we all believed in her," he continued, now anchoring himself closer to Maya. "And in my abandonment, I robbed her of that faith." Each step he took toward her was one closer to unveiling a bond that had stretched thin through time and separation. "Maya, I'm so sorry for not holding on to you, for running away when you needed me most. You deserve bravery, and I should have fought through my fear instead." She opened her eyes further, their depths searching for a connection, a plea that pulled on the heartstrings of every presence in that room. "Ethan," her voice cracked like fragile porcelain, but there was resolve underpinning her trembled words, like her spirit wouldn't let go so easily. "Fight for me. Together." My breath caught at the sound, the invocation igniting an unassuming strength that coursed through our hearts, uniting us in purpose. I leaned closer, feeling hope surge between us. Maybe, love had a way of resuming its rightful place even within chaos. Let her hear it. Let her know she is not alone. "She needs that now more than ever," I urged, shoving my emotions aside for the moment and reaching out to get hold of her hand tighter. "I miss you," Maya whispered softly, her gaze shifting between the two of us, a delicate realization threading through her consciousness. "I never wanted you to leave me." Each word emerged like a drumbeat, echoing through my mind, reviving memories we had each locked away. "Neither did I," replied, glancing at Ethan, who nodded in solemn agreement, coaxing the haunting shadows of misery that had clung to us like a shroud. "I wish I had been brave enough to fight alongside you. I'm here now. We're both here." A steely glint emerged in her gaze, unwinding from the fear that held all of us captive. "I want to stay. I need to fight," she said, summoning the last dregs of her strength. A sudden lull fell over the chaos, as we both leaned in, hearts echoing this unfiltered truth louder than any noise ever could. At that moment, I could sense the boundaries between us dissolve into pain and regret, that history and uncertainty all morphing into resolve. Together, we cradled Maya's hand, our united grip infusing reassurance into the whirlwind that tried to extinguish her light. "I promise you," I whispered, as tears began to flow unabashedly, "together we'll fight to bring you back to us. You are our light. You are not alone." "Together," Ethan echoed, his voice breaking but firm, full of warmth and sincerity. "Always." As the alarm slowly tempered, their shrill cries fading into a heartbeat of hope, it became evident that the collective courage igniting within us was enough. The flicker of life that Maya had always embodied flared with newfound strength, bolstered by the whisper of love hidden deep within the letters, and the bonds tied into our hearts. In the interplay of darkness that easily threaded through those moments, we found clarity, acknowledgment of pain, granting us the chance at forgiveness. And as hope unfurled its wings, enveloping the essence of every unspoken word, a silence filled the room, an affirmation of our resilience, glowing with an unyielding promise. And as her fragile shell stirred awake, the first thing I saw was her soft smile, brightening through pain, reaching back toward us. We can start fresh, brave together, yes? In that moment, our hearts aligned, and I realized something beautifully profound. While love could indeed keep us bound in chains, it could also break us free to rise above the turmoil. Love found a way, always. And in the quiet of that hospital room, I felt hope kindle anew, glistening whispers of second chances weaving through the air, binding us together in an unbreakable embrace. Even though the road ahead remained uncertain, we had renewed our pact to navigate the storms together. As I listened to the steady rhythm of Maya's heartbeat, a smile graced my lips. "No longer lost in the shadows of pain," I murmured. "You'll always be our light, Maya, the brilliant spark that guides us home." And in that silent space, beneath the weight of unspoken dreams and hidden truths, we began anew, climbing toward the warmth of the light together,